Let me explain to you how I use Uber and Lyft. Once I get in the car, I usually sit in the back and request a quiet ride and privacy. Occasionally, I will have a chat with the person driving, and it's usually perfectly pleasant. But the last thing I want to do when my life is in a stranger's hands is get into an argument with that person over God. Now imagine if the Uber or Lyft driver used that opportunity of having a captive passenger to preach his or her religion. Both ride-sharing companies have strict rules prohibiting religious discrimination. Drivers cannot refuse a customer, for example, who is very clearly not a member of their faith. That's fine. That's good. But there's no rule preventing drivers from proselytizing and attempting to win new converts. And Christians know it. A recent Associated Press article focused on Lyft drivers who see their work as mobile Christian ministries. One guy talked about how he could share his faith when driving people. He insisted he was respectful if they weren't interested, and I'm sure he believes that. But I really didn't like how his comments made his whole ruse seem mild. Because nothing about this is okay. To treat a customer as a potential convert rather than as a client changes the relationship, even if that guy makes clear he respects passengers who don't want to hear his religious tripe. It would be more respectful if he didn't work off of the assumption that his clients want to change their religious beliefs. It's not like he's an anomaly either. There are so many people on Twitter who have complained after being subject to a religious sales pitch while in an Uber or a Lyft. It wasn't a pleasant experience. And sometimes it was worse.
Hi, I was a youth pastor for 16 years, so yeah, I know how to talk to teenagers. So why not take that to Uber evangelism?
Now, maybe some of you are thinking that this isn't that big of a deal. If it's an unpleasant ride, just give the driver a bad review or a 1-star rating and just move on. I don't think this is as simple as that though. There is a belief among many evangelicals that there should not be any boundaries when it comes to sharing your faith. But there is a substantive difference between using personal social media or podcasts or TV shows or YouTube to do it, where recipients can always block the noise or change the channel, and doing it as part of a rideshare company where passengers may not be able to leave the car and the preacher is literally the person in the driver's seat. That is not a good time for Jesus to take the wheel.
Jesus, take the wheel, take it from my hand.
While the subjects of the AP article insisted they could take no for an answer, there's no way for the passengers to know that. We don't know what might make a driver snap. If I point out something wrong with the Bible, you know some random commenter down here is gonna flip out. And telling someone, hey, can you please shut up about Jesus because it's been a long day and I just don't care, is the sort of thing that might make a religious fundamentalist snap. How many of their customers smiled and nodded or pretended to want to hear about Jesus because they were worried about what might happen if they said they were not interested? How many of them heard the religious sales pitch and immediately thought, my life is in danger? How much worse would it be if you were a female passenger with a male driver? And if you think any of this is overblown, imagine how bad that situation might be for a Muslim woman wearing a hijab. It's one thing to make small talk about work or hobbies. It's not even necessarily a problem if religion comes up in a casual conversation. I have responded to strangers' questions about what I do for a living by saying I write about religion and politics, and then I quickly changed the subject. But no one in that situation should dig any deeper into a stranger's life without explicit permission. The Freedom From Religion Foundation is now calling for both companies to put a stop to this before it gets worse. They told Uber and Lyft that no one should have to pay to be missionized against their will. They said preaching while driving is both a distraction and potential traffic hazard. More importantly, passengers may feel threatened. This isn't about censorship. This is about two companies that rely on their reputations to just make the right business decision. FFRF is simply asking both companies to think of their customers and their bottom line and make rides more welcoming for everyone. Just as you wouldn't want a driver who holds wildly different political views from you attempting to start a debate, or a driver casually bringing up a topic that makes you uncomfortable, or a driver who wants to debate atheism with you, people should not have to worry about having religion shoved in their faces when all they want and all they're paying for is a ride somewhere.